Hey folks, Nick here from Another BookTube channel, and today a bit of like a ramble type of review of two books, Cibola Burn and Nemesis Games by James S.A. Corey, books 4 and 5 of the Expanse series, respectively. I am really enjoying the Expanse, and I've made it a goal to finish the series in the first half of 2024. So I finished. I read Cibola Burn at the end, near the end of 23, but I didn't do a review of it, just because I've done Expanse reviews before and they kind of fell flat. So I'm not sure if there's a ton of interest, which is why I'm combining it with. I'm doing two books in one, just so like I have the content there, but I'm not doing two videos for it, just doing one. I don't know. It makes sense in my head. But I finished Nemesis Games just this past week. Big shout out to my friend Rick for sending me a copy. I had gotten a library copy to read most of it, but he surprised me with this in the mail, so I was able to finish it up that way. So very grateful for that. It's always good to have good friends, and I love them. I mean, these books are really fantastic. So I just want to talk a little bit about each one, quick synopses about them, quick just like thoughts. First general impressions about them. I will be talking about these, not necessarily like spoiling these books, but I will be talking about them as though you've read the previous books, the previous three books before them. So you've read Abaddon's Gate, you've read Leviathan Wakes, you've read Caliban's War. So just be mindful of that. I'll start with Cibola Burn, book 4. And in this one, after Abaddon's Gate, there's literally a gateway that's opened up, so that there are now thousands of unexplored planets that appear to be like hospitable to human life, that are just waiting to be colonized. So, if in the previous books in the series, the conflict has been between Earth and Mars and the belts, like the asteroid belts in between them, who are like fighting over resources. Mars is trying to, be independent from Earth. The belt is trying to be independent from like both Mars and Earth. There's just a ton of conflict there. But now this gate's opened. There's thousands of worlds that don't require terraforming. It's not that you don't have to do a lot of work to make them, to colonize them, but you don't need to work to like get water there. Like Mars, all the water has to be like manufactured. In the belt, it's all about rations and like how much you're allowed to have. So Cibola Burn is about the first of these new planets getting colonized. Now, what happens is a bunch of settlers who were unsanctioned just took a ship out there, went through the gate, and just settled down on the first planet they found. Like, they weren't happy where they were. They go find a planet, and they settle down. And, like, this is where we live now. Unfortunately, the gears of business turn, and the planet that they've settled on has been essentially purchased. A corporation has legal rights and claim to the planet to mine it for its resources and just control like who comes in, who comes out. So the settlers who got there first basically try to put like they attack the incoming ship of the corporation, to try to like send them a warning to like, don't come here, you're not welcome here. Ends up accidentally killing a bunch of people. Things go wrong, tensions escalate, and so Holden and his crew, the crew of the Rocinante, are brought in as mediators to try to ease tensions, prevent escalation, until like a proper force can go out there to figure out what's going on. And of course, things don't go well at all. Things on the planet are not quite as they seem. And it's just a really, really great fun read. Although this one, I don't know, I really enjoyed this one. I thought maybe it was a little bit one note. Although what I did really like about it is it's obviously dealing in themes of like colonization, colonialism. There's obviously the direct contrast of the people who are first at a place who are now being kind of forced out by the strong military force, the militaristic force that comes in and is just like, we have more firepower, we have more people, we have more resources. Like, we're just going to plow right over you. Like, gee, where have we heard that before in history? Yeah, I mean, I think that all really works. I think what maybe might frustrate some people, and what kind of got under my skin a little bit, was that the bad guy in this book, who works for the company that is trying to take over the planet, is so very evil. Like, he's so obviously in the wrong. Like, when things start to go terribly awry, and it like, the only sensible thing to do is to like put differences aside and just like try to survive. Like, he sticks to like his guns completely, and it's so stupid. Like, it's so obviously the wrong decision. He's so cartoonishly evil. I don't mind a bad guy you could point at and say, that's him, I don't like him, he's bad, he's wrong. But it can be irritating sometimes, depending on how you do it. I don't know that it came across the best here. So while I enjoyed this book a lot, wasn't my favorite, because of because of that aspect. All right, so now I'll start off on Nemesis Games, the 5th book in the series. This one is also dealing with the fact that there are so many planets now that can be inhabited. What's happening is, because they are now out there, Mars, people are leaving Mars like at a huge rate. There's an exodus, because why stay on Mars where you have to like struggle so hard to get something as simple as water or air, when there's all these planets out there that have them. They just have them. And the same thing for well, maybe not the same thing for the belt, but what's happening is the belt is now being ignored because they are no longer a priority to keep safe, because it's like, oh, well, we'll just go to the new planets. The problem is the belters, they've evolved to live in the belt, so their bodies literally cannot live like under gravity. Like, they can't do it. So, but meanwhile, the resources that are normally getting sent to them, like medicine and food and water and stuff, it's being diverted, because now all the attention is on leaving this solar system to go through the gate. Now the crew, the Rocinante, they're stuck in dock for about 6 months for repairs. So Amos, Alex, and Naomi all decide to take the opportunity to check on their respective homes. So Alex goes to Mars to try to just like, not like rekindle things with his ex-wife, but just kind of like have a conversation. Amos goes back to Earth to revisit his stomping grounds. Somebody that he knew from his childhood passed away, so he's going back to make sure that it was natural causes. And Naomi gets a call from somebody mysterious. What's his name? Marcos? I think it's Marcos or Marco, saying that there's trouble. You got to come here and help us out. So they all go in their separate way. Now Holden stays back. He's got nowhere really to go. He doesn't want to go home. And he gets approached by Monica Stewart, who's a journalist that they worked with in, was it Caliban's War? Is that the Caliban's War or Abaddon's Gate? I can't remember. But she comes to him with a story where these ships that are going through the gate, some of them are disappearing, and nobody knows where they're going. And it hasn't been flagged because it's a small portion, it's a small percentage, but it's a big enough percentage where it's like, hey, we should be looking into this. So Holden begins an investigation with Fred Johnson. They think it's related to an extreme wing of the OPA. Now, what's really interesting and cool about this book is that it starts off, the first half of it feels very small in scale, because it's just a book about this family, the Rocinante crew, splitting up temporarily to go see their born families or their other families. And so this book is very much all about family dynamics, both the ones that you were born into and the ones that you choose. And for a while, you think that that's going to be kind of what follows through the remainder of this. But then at the halfway point of it, like, shit hits the fan real big time. And it's not an alien threat like the previous books. We have a true human threat here that's massively scaled. So the scaling up of the danger in this book is just ridiculous, and it's really, really impressive. Basically, there's like a massive scale terrorist attack in this book, and there is a line in here. I don't know for sure if either of the authors, James S. A. Corey, Ty Frank, or Daniel Abraham, I don't know if they used to live in New York or if they were there during 9/11. But there's a line in here that I read it and I was like, oh, like 9/11. Maybe we'll consider this a little bit of a minor spoiler. So if you don't want to hear this line, you can just skip ahead to here. But the line is, then the second rock hit Earth, and what might have been a natural disaster was revealed as an attack. And that's literally, that was the feeling like on 9/11. Like I remember that. I'm from New York. I was small at the time, but I remember everything about that day. And when the second plane hit, it was like, oh, this is not an accident. This is an attack. Like that's such a distinct memory, a distinct feeling in my mind. And like just seeing that in here, that line, I was like, ooh, ooh. But even with the massive scale of the threat here, very much the drama here is personal human scale. Naomi's chapters in particular, her family dynamic deals with difficult themes such as like domestic abuse that isn't physical. It's more like emotionally manipulative. It's a different type of abuse that is harder to write, in my opinion, but is still really important and I think handled very well here. I will say that the Naomi chapters are also offset by a lot of technical jargon that I found a little tough to follow at times, and there's a lot of belter speak which can be hard to parse. There's not a lot of instances where we get the direct translation, so you have to use context clues. But sometimes it's really, really dense, and it can be a little bit off-putting. But I liked that in this book in particular, all the point of view characters were the main crew. Because in the previous books, you would get maybe one or two of the main crew, and then an extra character or a new character, a couple new characters. In this one, the main point of views are Holden, Amos, Alex, and Naomi. So we're with our people the whole time, and so we get to learn a lot more about them, see how they are outside of the ship with other people, and it's just really interesting. I can see this book being a lot of people's favorite Expanse book. I am a little mixed on it. I had a lot of fun with it. I think there's some really great things in this one, but there were definitely parts where I felt a little bit less engaged, and a little bit like I kind of wanted to move it along a little bit. And I think part of that is that there isn't a true resolution at the end of this. So the world, the universe changing thing that happens in here is something that I think is setting up the last four books. And it's not something that gets resolved here. So I think that's maybe what I'm feeling as well, is that lack of resolution, that little lack of satisfaction. But in general, still a fantastic book. Both of these books are really great. I'm still really, really enjoying this series. And after this one, I absolutely cannot wait to see where they go with Babylon's Ashes. So we'll see what happens. I might do another like twofer review when I finish Babylon's Ashes and Persepolis Rising. We'll see. But if you've read these books, let me know your thoughts about them in the comments. I guess I'll give an arbitrary and subjective grade for Cibola Burn. You know what? I'm just going to give them both 7.5 out of 10. I think that's pretty fair. But really, all these books just they're kind of blending together to be one big story in my head. And I think at the end of that, I'll have like one ultimate grade for The Expanse. So when that time comes, we'll see how it goes. But again, let me know your thoughts about these books in the comments below. Thank you for spending some time with me today. But now it's time to get back to reading.